Hello, everybody. Good to see you.
Good evening, Ben.
You all got on stage very quick. Impressive. Very smooth. So I thought we'd just kick off with some quick warm-up questions, and then we'll dive into your stories and learn about what you're building. And it sounds already like from the conversation, from the chat, we're seeing people who are in the room tonight. There's loads of overlap with your startups and your projects and your missions, which is great. So we'll hopefully make those connections too. But first up, warm-up question. What powers you through your day? Jill?
So probably starting off the day, starting with a good smoothie in the morning. I think just making sure you get some healthy breakfast. And then I love walking. We're very lucky. We live right next to some lovely hills in Edinburgh. And I have a very energetic dog. So walking him daily, I think, just kind of clears the mind and starts things off in a good way.
That's fantastic. Lysander, what about you? Smoothies and dog walks or something different?
I mean, I definitely love walking. I mean, I'm right next to the river in London, so I think it's helpful to sort of go out there, have sort of clear your mind, have a think. But I guess I'm always a morning tea person, so you've just I use that to help brainstorm the day and think about what to do.
Well, if tea powers you through the day, you'll be okay in life because there's plenty of that around. Cool Virgin StartUp tea brand to check out. It's called Think Tea. It's like healthy tea. That's think with 2 E's. And Rob, what about you? What powers you?
I'm going to cheat a little bit. I've got 3 things, and I've been trying to do all 3 every day so far. And so we're 19 days into the year, but I've been doing cold showers in the morning, going for a quick run, getting out into nature. I'm in Queen's Park in northwest London, and getting 20 minutes jogging around the park really gets me going, and meditating and journaling each morning as well. So I'm trying to stick to those things. And I'm finding it's
Rob,
working
this
quite
to
well.
me sounds a bit like the 5 a.m. club kind of Robin Sharma sort of full checklist that you're doing every morning. How have you kept that up since the 1st of Jan?
Yeah, got the little habits tracker, ticking things off. It's going well.
I think we should all just quit this conversation now. If that's your attitude to the year, you're going to be flying. Thanks for sharing. Okay, second warm-up question. What's your current favorite tool for building your business? Jill?
I mean, I think it's probably, I don't know, listening to the podcast, I think early in the morning as well, when I go on that walk. I'm a big fan of one called How I Built This, which, you know, different entrepreneurs listening to their story. Awesome. Yeah. I just find it super motivational. You know, if you ever listen to any of these founders, they've definitely overcome a whole lot of hurdles, and it's always quite motivating to hear another story like that. So I think that's in my kind of mental kind of feel good checklist toolkit.
I look forward to listening to your episode of Meander Apparel on how I built this one day. Lysander, favorite tool?
I'd probably say my favorite tool is Moz. I mean, it's almost, you've got loads of books in the background. It's almost like you do a book club. I don't know. It's not, is that possible? But it's we use Moz most days, and I really find that helpful for, I guess, directing the content and sort of planning everything out, because SEO, I don't know, it takes ages and it's very boring to do sometimes. I mean, it's just so difficult, but it's always helpful to have a structural sort of plan as an app to sort of guide me.
Nice. So Moz as a day planning app. Rob, what about you? What's your favorite tool?
Looking to use it more this year. It's Loom. So you can shoot a really quick video on your webcam, and you can send it out via email, and you can have a bit more of an interactive relationship with anyone that you're talking to, but especially customers.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love that too. It feels very authentic. You kind of do it quickly, rough and ready. Lots of it, iterate fast. So it puts you in that habit, doesn't it? So Loom's a great recommendation. So final warm-up question. What are you exploring that's new this year within your business that you're learning about, or you're trying to like get into something new that you're really enjoying? Jill?
I think what's happened recently is we've just expanded quite a lot. So gone from kind of Steve and I to co-founders this time last year to now having a team of 12, and most of that's happened in the latter part of the year. So I'm pretty much learning, just finished a book called Do Team, and just kind of, learning how to work with the team remotely and, hopefully inspire them in a good way as well.
Yeah, that's a big jump up, but it's an exciting new challenge. The journey from founder to CEO is always a real leap. So yeah, going to be a good challenge this year for you. Lysander, what are you exploring that's new?
Well, we're sort of exploring better ways to partner up with brands. So we've got a really strong, I guess, understanding of what qualifies a brand to work with us, but not necessarily actioned that too much. So we're sort of starting to work on partnering up with some brands that, I guess, talk about B Corp and allow us to learn as well, because I think the more you combine feedback and sort of share analysis, the more you can, I guess, a bit like the startup events, you can sort of really improve your offering.
That sounds like a great intention at the start of the year. And Rob, what about yourself?
Learning about and looking forward to developing our supply chain. So a problem in our space is sustainability, and we're really getting our teeth into cleaning up our supply chain for this year.
Okay, so there we go. There's a little trinkets, nuggets looking into your businesses. But let's go back to the stories of these startups. So Jill, if we can start with you, Meander Apparel. Where did this idea come from, and how did you bring it to life?
So the idea came from a bike ride that we did, actually. So I was working in the clothing industry in the Times out in London, and Steve and I, Steve's my husband and my co-founder, organised a cycle from London to Paris with a group of friends. And I think it was, on and during the cycle that it came up about what we were wearing and why cycling apparel looked how it did. And it kind of, I think, got us thinking that perhaps there was a better way of doing things, creating versatile and technical clothing that looked good if you were on the bike, but equally looked nice if you were walking around those bars around Paris or something as well. But yeah, it was very much an idea that was sparked from the bike ride. And
when you were on that bike ride, are you going, hold on, we've got to change this lycra, the whole sort of like issue that's going on with these bike rides? How can we? Was it really then to say, how can we be glamorous and comfortable on a bike ride, or was it more than that? Were you like, could we do this whole thing better?
I mean, I think initially, I think Steve and I had been thinking it would be nice to set up a business, and brainstorming various different ideas. And so I think very initially, it probably was thinking about, the stuff's not great looking, we could make it a whole lot better. So initially when we started out, the thought process was, let's develop one product and take it from there. So we started out with our very first product was a Meander jacket, which is, completely lightweight, waterproof, breathable, but a very minimalist Scandinavian inspired design, and something that, you could wear on a bike, but equally you could wear, walking around town, no one would think you had on a cycle jacket. But I would say it was on the journey of developing the jacket that we started to think more about the brand. We realized that we couldn't just, develop one product and put it on a crowdfunding campaign, which we did put it on a crowdfunding campaign. But for that to work, we had to think more about the brand as a whole, about the vision for the company, and our values. And I think pretty quickly, with both of us being outdoor lovers, into cycling, but the outdoors in general, it was clear that we were passionate about doing things in a very sustainable way. So straight, from the get-go, I think our crowdfunding campaign, it was all about, not just the product, but the brand, and doing something that was timeless, made from sustainable materials, and made to last. So the kind of beginnings of our business idea was there from the start.
That's great. And did you or your husband Steve have a background in fashion or sustainability? So
yeah, I've got a background in fashion. So I studied did my degree sort of 20 years ago in clothing design, and then I moved to London and worked for various brands and designers in London. I think the focus when I worked for brands, it wasn't sustainability. They were, more kind of brands that were making collections every 6 months. Steve's background is completely different. So he studied engineering and then went on to work a little bit more in the financial side of things. But his passion and the reason that we were doing the charity bike ride was that Steve 1 week later was also doing an expedition to the North Pole. And so we were kind of doing the charity bike ride to raise money for the charity expedition. But I guess, his absolute passion, what I'm saying is the cycling and the outdoors and exploring. And with that, you have to think as an outdoor lover, you're constantly thinking about the planet and doing things well. So I think it was our joint passions, a bit of my background working in fashion, that's developed the brand that we're doing today.
Yeah, the story comes together beautifully. And then just bring us up to the point where what happened with that first jacket. Did it sell really well? How did you get the first revenue?
So yes, we launched our product through Indiegogo. So we did a reward-based crowdfunding campaign. So yeah, I think we had set a target of kind of £10,000, which was going to be enough for us to help us to fund our very first production run. So yeah, we were, it's kind of a month-long campaign, and we were delighted to kind of hit beyond our target within the month and raise the money for the very first production run. It was, without doubt, a very, very difficult thing to do, raising the money. By no means did our campaign go anything near as wild as a lot of them do on the platforms. But it was definitely a good thing for us to do, to test the market out, and a little bit less risk than going out and buying all the production in the first place. And also some of those backers that supported us then are still on the journey and still buying from us now. So yeah, it was a great experience.
It's such a good example of going for those early stage crowdfunds, reward-based especially, as a way of validating, but also committing, right? Building your community. So anyone that's thinking about doing what Jill and Steve did, it really, really highly recommended if you're prepared to put the time in early on, because it is a big effort. So congratulations on making it off the ground that way. Now, there's lots more we want to hear about Meander, but we're going to move on to Lysander's story now. So Leo's box, Lysander, where did this journey begin for you?
Yeah, of course. So, the journey started when I was about 14. So I was at school working around on an idea about the Sustainable Development Goals, and I sort of saw at the time this fantastic framework to try and drive impact and see how countries could, I guess, try and reduce theirs and ensure the world doesn't go totally wrong. But I was also looking at the time to sort of start a business, and I'd seen a company called Freddie's Flowers who do a fantastic flower service as subscription, and it was a very brilliant sort of idea for me to see how a business could work as a subscription system. It was entirely new as a model, but it was really cool. And I then sort of thought, well, I'd love to purchase sustainable products to try and, I guess, reduce my parents and my own impact. But all of the products were either rubbish or too expensive or just too difficult to understand if they were actually any good and actually sustainable. So I sort of thought all three aspects sort of aligned. So I knew that I wanted business to be a force for good and to try and have this framework that could reduce your impact, but also offer products at a more accessible sort of price that worked, because I think that was really important. So many people thought that a sort of a sustainable cleaning product was just basically water or a lot of elbow grease, whereas actually some of the products are far better than the mainstream brands. And so I thought sort of the subscription would work really well. And I guess I started it just after GCSEs, and I worked in the summer on that. I went to door-to-door knocking and to see if I could get the first customers and sign up to the subscription, which it was a very difficult process to do, but it was a very rewarding summer.
Leo, I'm calling you Leo because it's Leo's Box, which you can tell me why it's called that in a minute. But to me, it seems like completely mad. Like, I'm 20 years into this game, and I've just about got my head around what you just described. You basically grasped when you were 14 or before your GCSEs around like what's going wrong with the world, what the business opportunities are, and then you went out and launched something. So I just have to ask, like, what was driving you then, as I'm sure it is now, to act? Was it like seeing the scale of the problems? Was it just a healthy curiosity for opportunities, or was it a role model in your life?
Yeah,
because we all need lots more of that in our education systems, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, as was spoken about at the start, I'm a big believer in sort of the Better Business Act that I know Virgin have signed up to, and I guess I just thought it wasn't necessarily a role model, but I sort of saw an opportunity to think, well, actually, business just needs to be this role. I mean, I witnessed my parents working 5 days a week and probably working too hard, but it was sort of, I realized that that's what most people when they're older do. They work most days of the week, and that takes up a huge amount of time. We don't have that much time. This is a huge problem, and I guess the best way that we can direct the change is through business, because it's such a fundamental aspect of everyone's life.
Fantastic. And just before we come on to Rob, tell us a little bit around what Leo's Box has become. So why is it called Leo's Box, and what are you buying?
Yeah, of course. So when I started it, we were a subscription box. So you pay sort of a certain amount of money per month. So it was £20, and you got products. And these days it's a £4 subscription, a bit like Costco. So you can get all the products, but up to 70% off retail price, and sort of on average 40%. So it's all about, I guess, the accessibility. But Leo's Box is named after me and our sort of raison d'etre. It's loving Earth's oceans, but then it's also my middle name's spelled Leo, so it kind of works because my name's quite difficult to say sometimes. So I guess people refer to me as Leo quite a lot, and it felt like a personal way of maintaining closeness with with customers and as a brand, but also to deliver the change that we want.
Oh, it's brilliant. Thanks so much for the introduction to that and your early journey into business. Rob, did you start when you were 14?
No, but I guess the inspiration for it came from earlier than that.
Oh, really? So the inspiration for what you're working on now goes way back.
I think, the early seedlings of it was, I grew up next to a farm, and my nan had a little allotment where we grew up. I grew up with nan, and so there was always sort of homemade, homegrown food on the plate, and we were always in the allotment getting our hands dirty, growing and gardening. And so fast forward to sort of 2015, when I moved into London, I was extremely acutely aware of that sort of deficit we have in the urban environment in our connection with nature. And so fast forwarding again to 2020, if you can cast your mind back to spring 2020, it was a beautiful summer's day in March, and the sun was shining, it was warm, it was pleasant, the birds were singing, the flowers were coming into bloom again, but the world was shutting down and we were all trapped at home. And so it was that moment of the disconnect from nature was becoming even more acute because we couldn't even leave our homes. And so that was the sort of birth of what we started to do with Box and Sprout.
And tell us more about what it's become, because I know you've been on a journey over the last year and a half trying out different things. So what was your first offering, and where did it go from there?
Yeah, well, the first thing was growing some veggies. So I was growing some veggies on a windowsill on a balcony. I had a small living in Oval in South London, and had a little spot, and it was a bit of a sun trap, and so I was growing some stuff, and it got a bit of attention. Some friends were wanting to do the same, I noticed, and so set up a business just very quickly, quick website, some Facebook ads, and started selling potted vegetable plants and then driving them around London, delivering them. And what we learned was, very quickly it became apparent that there's this real knowledge gap for people that didn't grow up with a nan teaching them how to garden and how to grow things, but there was a real appetite to do so and to get stuck in and to give it a go. What we've since learned was that actually 3 million Brits picked up gardening for the first time in their lives during lockdown. And so that really speaks to the value of gardening, both the sort of for the mental well-being benefits, but also for the physical health benefits. And yeah, there's this huge appetite to give it a go, but a real lack of confidence and knowledge in how to do that and where to start. And so what we've learned since then is that actually the traditional gardening retailers and the incumbents in the market, they cater to a gardener who is very experienced, and they actually, in doing so, they can alienate people who are less experienced, who need a bit of hand-holding, and need to be shown a little bit more what to do.
And what's Box and Sprout today? Is it subscription boxes? Is it like an online plant store? What are you working on?
So for context, we did the veggie plants. We then started doing some house plants. We've now come on to a subscription, and then we've evolved that again, and we've realized that actually the outdoor gardening is the big thing. So we are a retailer, an online retailer, selling outdoor plants at its core. But on top of that, we're bringing in some inspiration, some content, to help people get over those purchase barriers, and to make them feel like it's a brand that's not going to give an A to Z of 4,000, 5,000 different plants, but actually just distill it into gardening into its purest form, and to help people do that in whatever space they've got, particularly in the urban environment, but not exclusively.
One of the things I love about it, Rob, is the fact that you assume it's one of those things you assume. Oh yeah, people know how to do their gardening or have got the confidence to do it, but actually, for many, there's a lot of fear or barriers to like, oh, well, how do I do this? I don't want to kill a plant, or I don't know what to buy first, and so on. And you're helping fix that, which is brilliant. So now we have to talk about the money, because the money is what helps our, oils our business, helps us go on these missions, and it's the tool at the center of much of our lives. Where are you? Tell us a little bit about your funding journeys so far. What business model you're currently using in terms of revenue, and what's next for you, and any learnings around money along the way. Jill, are you? Has it been an easy path for you so far with finance and Meander?
No, it's not been easy, but I guess we're taking a kind of slow, gradual approach, because we've been going a few years. So I think I started out, I think it was prior to crowdfunding actually, that I did go to Virgin StartUp for my initial sort of 10k loan that I got. And I think, so yeah, that was kind of prototype development and, help with the marketing and just getting very initially started. I then did the reward-based crowdfunding, which helps pay for our very first production run. Then again, I think really quickly spent that money very much on production. I think went back then to Virgin StartUp and maxed out the full loan to 25,000. We then the following year did a kind of friends and family small rounds. And yeah, with each step we've just been kind of funding a bit more of the growth, buying most of it tending to go onto our production. And then last year, towards the end of last year, we actually had a customer who'd come into our Edinburgh store, and then emailed me later to say he was a huge fan of the brand. And it turned out he had recently sold his business for quite a few million and was looking to invest a good amount of money. So our plans had been to do a kind of equity crowdfund at the end of last year, but we met with this investor, very much, got on very well, and decided not to do the equity, the crowdfund, and instead we did a seed round with him and another investor as well.
Fantastic, and that's all closed.
Yes, yeah.
Congratulations, which means you've been able to onboard this team.
Exactly. It's just come at a perfect time. So brought on the team. We're very much a direct-to-consumer brand. So for us, a lot of the money, we're not, pre-selling any of our collection. We're very much kind of buying all that stock up front. So it's been able to help us. We're expanding the collection. We've just opened another store as well, and then helping expand the team. So yeah, it's been, that's been over a few years to get to that stage, but
sure.
Yeah,
it's a lovely example, Jill, of like actually, the best way to raise money or attract money is to go out and build a great product and a brand. And of course, we all know that's chicken and egg, right? You need funds to get it going. But your story, Meander, is I think it's a really good example of like, you kind of hacked it together with loans and crowdfunding and friends and family, and then you were able to really prove that this had fantastic traction, and it's brought this in. So well deserved. And also going down an equity crowdfund route would have taken a lot of your time and energy.
Absolutely.
So it's not lucky, it's well deserved. And Lysander, you're a bit earlier on, but how have you funded Leo's Box so far?
So I've been self-funding it for most of it. So when I was it started before the business did, when I was on my 13th birthday. So the minimum age in the UK you can work is 13, and so on my 13th birthday I went round on the high street we've got, and sort of with a sheet of paper, and just asked for a weekend job. And so I sort of saved up lots of the money I could from the working, and luckily was able to use the funds to start Leo's Box. It was started small, but I've just been reinvesting it all so much, because luckily for me, I still live with my parents. So joys of having been at school for most of the time starting business was not having to pay rent, having to pay for food and stuff. So I could just invest it all in the business. And then when I got my co-founder Flora on board, we spoke about it, and we won a few grants and things that allowed us to invest a bit more in the business and new products, and to rebrand as well. And so hopefully all of that is sort of coming in the next few months with a new site and I guess more flashy stuff
what sort of level you got to are you getting to this year, do you hope? Is it to the point where you're like, we need to go out and raise more money, or we're generating enough monthly revenue in order to focus on it full time and develop? What stage are you at?
So because I'm on a gap year at the moment, I'm able to work on it full time and Flora does it as much as she can because she's freelance as well. So that works really well for us. But I think we're going to sort of make the decision on if we should go out and raise a sort of seed round in late Jan or late sort of July. I mean, because it kind of depends on university and how I'm going to deal with packing boxes, because I still pack it from my sort of bedroom and stuff all the time.
How many boxes are you packing a day?
Well, one day in Christmas we did 300, so that was really incredible. But most of the time it's just sort of 20 or 30.
There's the sweat equity right there, Jill, huh? And awesome. Rob's packing his pot plants for everyone. We're all at it. I love the fact that Lysander calls his working on his startup his gap year. Because basically it makes me feel like I've been on my gap year for 20 years. But you get your sweat equity for sure. Rob, how's the funding journey for Box and Sprout going?
Yeah, good, thank you. So we started self-funded as well. We're my co-founder Charlie and I are both sort of in our early 30s now. So we've got a little bit of savings that we can start using. But We've paired that with a loan from Virgin StartUp, so shameless plug for you there. And that helped us that sort of through a lot of the testing phases that we went through. And yeah, we're now on the cusp of friends and family round, so sort of a pre-seed, and looking to use that to scale through what will be quite a busy period for the business in spring. So when gardening really kicks off in sort of March, April, May. So getting some funds in, friends and family round to see us through that, and then looking to do an external equity round probably Q3 this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as you can hear from these stories, everybody, there's the whole variety of ways of financing and funding your way through your business. So what I wanted to come on to next is that a lot of questions we get at Virgin Startup, and even seeing some tonight, are people saying, like all of you, I've got this product, I've got this service. I know I validated it with a small group. I'm now doing my digital marketing, and there are so many channels to go down when you're doing direct to consumer marketing. Do I spend it on Facebook and Instagram ads? Do I try and create events where I can bring people together? Do I form partnerships? What I'd love to hear is an example or two from each of you like what you've tried that's worked and what you've tried that hasn't worked, and therefore kind of what your strategy or approach is to selling and marketing your businesses online. Leo's box, let's start with you. How did you get how have you got your sales online so far?
Yeah, of course. So I was doing door-to-door knocking most nights after school before lockdown, but obviously that became very impossible. I mean, I could have been partying. I just sadly was being locked down. That was a shame. But otherwise, it's been sort of working a lot with ambassadors. So we've got quite a growing ambassador list from influencers who are small but have a very strong, I guess, understanding of our mission and share the passion that we've got for the planet and sustainability in general. And so we use them to, I guess, plug us, but in a very nice, authentic way. So it's not necessarily talking about the brand directly. It's more sort of in the corner, seeing the washing up liquid that we've provided in the glass bottle, and that's sort of the direction that we try and go for.
So you haven't spent money on ads, anything like that?
We've done sort of £100 here and there, but not very much. And I was probably going to say the main feedback that I can provide on areas that just hasn't worked is not investing enough. So our CAC was for the Instagram ads was sort of £50 to £60 per person, which just was not very good for a £4 a month subscription. So
Leo's dropping in the cost of acquisition, an acronym which should set off some sort of bell or alarm here. But that's a whole nother workshop to go into that. But basically, if you're looking at ads and the feedback is like, oh, I need to spend £50 to sell a £5 margin product, then that's negative, right? But it's funny, it's like gambling. People do get sucked into it. Jill, has Meander do many ads, or are you focused on partnerships and creative content?
Yeah, we run ads, but it's definitely not our main focus. I suppose we use them mostly as a retargeting tool, just as a reminder to people. But yeah, it's mostly been about creating really engaging content. Something that we're really keen on doing, and it seems to be working quite well for us, is building our online community through a newsletter that we send out. So we do a fortnightly newsletter, and within that we make sure that we're adding as much value to our customer base. So I've been told by a customer that he absolutely loves, in fact several customers kind of say how much they love it. It's inspiring stories. Generally, we do a lot of collaborations in the magazine with people that are doing lots of interesting things, climbing Munros or rock climbing, or different staycations around Scotland and things like that. And we just don't sell too much in the magazine as well, in the newsletter. But I think it is growing that community, and we're constantly engaging with our customer. And then when we do have new products, or it is Christmas or Father's Day, and we do put out a sales newsletter, then they do tend to work, and we've just kind of built up that trust and community, I guess.
That sounds like to me the perfect execution of the old Gary Vaynerchuk jab, 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 right hook, which is this idea that 80% of the time you give value, whether that's through information, inspiration, entertainment, and then 10 to 20% of the time you ask, which is like, buy our stuff or share our news or whatever it is. And you do it very clearly. You don't do it underhand at the bottom of the email. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's great. I'm curious, like in the world of apparel and outdoor brands, like the competition is fierce, right? And you're up against these amazing brands that have, 1,000 times more resource than you to create stories. How do you build that community? Because I get that there's a connection with a small startup and a founding couple and all of that, but how do you get them to, like, what's been the way that you've found that people have gone, no, I want to keep coming back to you because we can find climbing stories on the web and every day. That's not the challenge, right?
Yeah, sure. I guess ultimately it's got to come down to the product that you're making. So yes, absolutely, we put so much time and effort into the products that we're developing, and word of mouth spreads if you do a good product. And that's definitely another way where we're generating the sales from. I think we were aware of kind of wanting to develop a technical trouser before we did, and we were aware that there was a lot of these trousers out there that again just didn't really look good, too many zips and all sorts of things going on. But there was a need for something that is water resistant and super comfortable and amazing for doing all these outdoorsy things that we love to do. And so we went out with this mission just to create this amazing product that we would want to wear every day, and that had that versatility and the performance. And I think when we made it, we just felt like we had 100% nailed the product. And yeah, time and time again, customers come in, they buy one color, then they buy another two, and then someone else comes in going, I've heard about these trousers. So I think, whilst there is lots of competition out there, we need to make sure we're kind of finding what that gap is. So we're absolutely not trying to do these huge collections and churn stuff out, because we wouldn't then stand out. But if we spend a lot of time working on the design and thinking where the gaps are in the market, on what's missing, and then we really, really focus on that, I think just doing a product that really stands out is probably where we're generating that word of mouth.
And it's working here because Andy Fishman says, I'm a subscriber. It's a great read, Jill. I'm a Meander Apparel fan and customer. So your newsletter is working for me. There you go. Now, listen, Jill, before I come to Rob's direct-to-consumer marketing plan, a question here that's, how were you able to get the initial order on a small budget, given your product is quite technical, so can't be made cheaply?
So how was I able to fund the...
How were you able to get the initial order on a small budget, given your product is quite technical? Or was it not on a small budget relative to other clothing brands?
So the very initial product that we produced, we funded that through the reward-based crowdfunding campaign. So yeah, absolutely, it's not cheap to produce the technical products. So I think kind of doing it so that we had all our pre-orders meant that we were able to fund the very first production run. And what
was that target you had to hit for that crowdfund?
It was £15,000. I think we actually needed 20,000. And we were, so we hit our target and just a bit over, and just kind of got there, just got by with the rest. But yeah, it was definitely that funded it. And then I think thereafter we had the confidence that the collection would sell. And I guess we took a bit of a gamble on it and just kind of funded it through those other means that I said earlier. Yeah.
And we're now, of course, getting a flood of questions around technical fashion. But I'll just ask you once more before we do move on. Colette wants to know how you then got it prototyped and created.
So just various iterations. The first on my own sewing machine, which looked pretty bad. I think it'd been quite a long time since I'd done something like that. Then going to a very local factory, so one in Scotland who produced their first one. And then thereafter realized that, selling price would be far too high, plus we needed certain technical expertise. So then source manufacturers abroad, went to some big kind of fabric fairs and exhibitions in Europe to source the fabrics that we needed, and find the manufacturers as well. And then sent them probably some design sketches and my own dodgy sewn prototype, and got something a lot better back, thankfully. But yeah, several rounds of that. It
was a DIY job to start, but there you go. Your degree came in handy down the line. Rob, tell us a little bit about getting Box and Sprout out into the world. Have you been using mainly online channels?
We tried both. I think we may have tried pretty much every channel going, and it's been good fun. Some have been successful and fruitful, and some less so. And then, we started on Facebook, and what we found was that we had really good success with that. But then that's actually very seasonal and it's quite volatile. So, if when the initial lockdown was momentarily ended and some restaurants were opening up again, then Facebook's ads, there was much more demand for ad space, and so the price of ads went up a little bit, and so we were exposed as a business to that volatility. And we've tried different platforms. And I suppose one of the learnings is each platform has a slightly different customer base. And so you've got to factor that into your overall business model canvas. When you're changing a different channel, you're going to see a slightly different customer. And how does that impact what you're doing and how you're speaking to them, the products you're offering, etc. So it's got to be quite focused. But kind of like what Jill was saying, one of our favorite way of doing things is kind of trying to bring people into our community first and to give them some value first before going for a sale straight off the bat. And so we've really enjoyed running ads through Facebook and Instagram, but using them to get people onto collect email addresses or collect phone numbers. So then we can start a conversation with customers and bring them into our ecosystem and our community. And then go for the sale eventually, as you said, sort of the 80-20 on that. But we've done offline stuff as well, a bit like Lysander. We've done some door-to-door knocking around London, walking up to doors and taking our an example box for our subscription and trying and signing people up that way. Good fun. Tough when the weather's bad and it's raining and you're trudging along and you've had like 15 no's or door slammed in your face. So you've got to sort of at the cold face, but it's enlivening and it's great when you do get somebody signed up. So but yeah, marketing is something that's been new to me with this business, and it's always changing. There's always a new platform or a new way of trying to do things, but ultimately if you can create good value content, as you said, Jill, and build a community and engage with the customer base and be as authentic as possible, then that's when we've found more success.
And even before we came online here tonight, we were talking about theroom.io, which is a new influencer marketing platform that's trying to connect people up more authentically between brands. And so that's something to check out, theroom.io. So I'm going to drop that in the chat. Now, we've got just under 10 minutes left and loads of more questions to answer. So I'm going to focus on cost, co-founders, and climate, right? We're going to cram that in. Are you up for that, you guys?
Yeah.
Good. If you don't, you just log off, right? So let's talk about cost or pricing specifically. So people are asking, do you price by the industry? Do you price by the product with the margin on top? Industry is obviously competition and like what everyone else does. Or do you try and price it slightly differently based on value? Jill, how do you figure out pricing in your for your brand?
So I guess first of all, we probably think about what the customer will pay for it, as opposed to just looking at our margins. So previously, when I have worked for clothing brands that are a lot bigger, it's all about kind of making sure that, you're getting that 50% margin or 70%, whatever it is, and making sure, that you get that across the range. But I think as a small brand, it's a lot more important for us to think, what will the customer pay? Are we giving them brilliant value? We're not too focused on the margin at first because, well, one, we're not, our volumes aren't so high that it's just more important, I suppose, to give great value in a brilliant product. I'm not saying that we do it cheap, because we definitely don't. It is a sustainable product, and made in European factories, so it probably costs a lot more than others do on the high street. But I'm definitely not trying to achieve. I think I can see in the chat that someone's saying, I've heard it's 3.5. I think some brands will do kind of 7-10 times markup, but ours is probably more like, I don't know, 2.5, which I'm sure some investors or industry people expert would tell us it's far too low. But for us right now, it feels right for the product we're making, where we want to sit in the market.
I love this approach, Jill, and it's also the hardest, right? Because the easiest approach to pricing is to say, well, what's our competition doing? Let's try and undercut them. Or what's the market? What's the typical markup? Or how much does our product cost? Let's add a little bit on top. Whereas this is all about perception and value, and also the sustainability and the values of what you're doing, right? An extreme example of this for those listening is someone once sold an app on the Apple Store for like $10,000, and all it was like, this is the world's most expensive app. And it was just to prove the point that there's always someone out there that will pay a ridiculous amount of money or a premium for something if they find it entertaining or valuable enough, or crazy enough in this case. So it's like the pricing game is always a hard one. It's psychologically, it's a hard one to play, but it's a great example, Jill, what we've done. What about Leo's Box? What's your pricing strategy?
Yeah, so as we don't make any of our own products, we're not necessarily able to set them too much. So we're very dependent on our wholesale prices. But so as part of the membership is about, I guess, offering the discount, we want to try and make sure that we're able to pass on virtually all the savings that we've got. So we basically charge wholesale prices, maybe to 5-6% more, and generally not very much more, because it ensures that we are, I guess, equal to supermarket prices on non-sustainable options.
And do you think there's a premium opportunity out there in this space?
I mean, I'd say sustainability is quite premium generally. I'm sure that you two as well find that as well. It's so much more difficult when you spend probably triple the amount of time researching every aspect, doing the sort of carbon life cycle, stuff like that. But there's definitely an option where I guess our approach is premium products without the premium price tag, and that sort of feels for us as though it's the best option for sustainability.
Yeah,
fantastic. And for Box and Sprout, how are you pricing?
We are selling a product and sort of subject to wholesale prices as well, like Lysander. So we consider our shipping costs, our packet. We basically add up all our costs and see what we need to charge based on that, and we have a ballpark margin that we apply, and take it from there. Before we were doing we were adding a lot of value to the product with certain elements that we were doing in our box, where we were sort of making our own recipe for a growing media, where we were spent a lot of time researching really sustainable materials and organic substances and substrates to create a growing compost which is completely peat free, but also really light and lends itself well to online shipping and e-commerce. So it's basically a bottom-up approach at the moment, but there are additional services in the pipeline that we think which will have a different pricing strategy in the future.
So there's a great exercise listening to you that's reminded me of that for everyone it's worth trying at some point, which is Airbnb talked about. It's Brian Chesky at Airbnb talked about. It's like, well, what would a 5-star version of an Airbnb be? What would the experience be? What would a 6-star version be? Oh, well, we'd have these amazing candles and we'd have someone welcoming and your favorite Spotify playlist. So, okay, great. What would a 7-star version be? Oh, well, we'd drive you there in a limousine and you'd have this, we'd pick you up from the airport. You'd have a massage on the way. Great. What would an 8-star version be? Oh, well, you'd have a private blah, 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 blah. And they went all the way up to 10 stars. And the point of the exercise is not to say, we're going to create this product or service. It was to try and get people thinking, what other value could we bring to our audience that could take the perception, and therefore the price and reach new people and so on. I was just thinking Box and Sprout, surely just like topless gardeners delivering the plants would be an easy premium. That would be the Virgin approach.
We tried that, Ben, but we lost customers.
Well, you got to find the right gardeners. So let's talk about co-founders briefly. You all are in relationships, business relationships, but Jill, you're in a business and life relationship. How do you manage it?
Well, I think during lockdown we built a garden office pod. So one of us can work in the house and one in the office. So no, I'm kind of joking, but it's absolutely brilliant having a co-founder, someone to go through the absolute highs and lows of the business. Absolutely couldn't do it without him. But yes, there is obviously extra kind of things that we need to I think just a wee bit of space every now and then is needed when you also live with your business partner. So yeah, no, Steve and I do make a conscious effort if one of us is just kind of feeling extra stress and pressure, is you just give each other that bit of space. So if we do need to get our heads out and just kind of concentrate by ourselves, we will give each other the time that we need. But equally, yeah, I absolutely, and I think he would say the same, but we couldn't have done it by ourselves, just having somebody else with a different skill set. But then I think also just to be on the journey and celebrate all the highs and lows with you is just absolutely an essential, I'd say.
Yeah, and it cements that mission even more when you're doing it with someone else, and of course if you're doing it with your partner in life, 10 times that. What about for Lysander and Rob? Just jump in. Like, how do you manage your co-founder? How do you manage the partnership so that you deal with the bumps without falling out?
Rob, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. We've got a mechanism where we have feedback once a month. So we take ourselves away from the day-to-day. We get our heads up, we get out the trenches, go and have a coffee somewhere. And yeah, we'll usually do it face to face, so not over Zoom, and we'll just have a really candid chat about how things are going. If there's anything that's cropped up that's sort of starting to irritate us or isn't working for us, we've created that forum where we can just have that really open, honest, conversation. And I think everyone's reasonable, right? We're all reasonable people. You can work through difficulties, and as long as you communicate them. What's key is not let something bubble or boil away under the surface until like the pressure just blows. So actually having those conversations, having that forum to have those conversations, it's really valuable.
That's great.
I'd probably say basically all the same, really, as in I chat to my business partner, I guess, all the time over WhatsApp, and it means as well that sometimes we're chatting business stuff and sometimes we're chatting sort of just friend stuff, and that's really helpful to ensure that you can always, I guess, say at the end of the day, enjoy your weekend, what are your plans and stuff like that, because I think everyone can do with a bit of kindness and just think about each other. Being in a startup is stressful lots of the time, and I guess my co-founder is slightly older than me, so she's got more experience, which is helpful, because sometimes I need someone to be more mature when things go wrong. So it's helpful to be able to have that as an option.
Lysander, I doubt there's anyone more mature than you in business. Not that I've met anyway. Not the performance you're giving tonight. So listen, final question for the three of you. I'll save the toughest one till last, because I know you're nicely warmed up now. But you're all mission-driven founders, and like you, I believe that the future of business is, as Andy was saying up front, is businesses that fixes problems rather than creates problems down the line. But we are also living in a time where we're facing this multitude of crises. Modern life, even for those who are privileged to explore our own careers, is often overwhelming. What's your advice to people who are thinking about going on this path of trying to build something from scratch that will play a small part in tackling some of these problems that we face in the world? What's the key thing that's helped you along the way, that's kept you focused and motivated and driving forward? Jill?
Yeah, I think, finding something that you're passionate about, or that you're interested and curious about, and then finding the purpose and how you can give back and do good in society. Because I think at the end of the day, if you are in business, then you have a huge opportunity to do something good. So for us, like I said, we're hugely passionate about the outdoors, and we know that the clothing industry has a lot to answer for when it comes to kind of climate change. So for us, I guess we believe that it's our duty to be able to do things in a responsible way, and then to give back at the same time as well. So whether that's giving back to charities, environmental charities, but just thinking about the purpose all the time and creating something positive in the world that you're passionate about. Yeah.
That's fantastic to hear. Leo, what about for you?
I'd echo everything Jill said. As for us, sustainability is so integral to the business. I mean, it is literally our business. So I think it's really important to find something you're passionate about and really believe in. So for us, that was B Corp, and that was becoming a B Corp, making sure we were part of that framework. And from then on, we got access to the community and sort of fellow brands to learn from and meet and market with. But I know there are so many different options. Some people, depending on what you believe in most, I guess you could be carbon neutral. You could try and do some water neutral, or if you love the outdoors or plants as well, you can. I guess there are loads of charities out there that you can choose to donate to support, because charities need our support at the moment. So, and the outdoors and stuff requires it as well. So it's about finding what you can possibly align with.
100%. Rob?
Yeah, we've had lots of ups and downs with the business, and it's an individual and personal journey as much as it is a journey about building something separate from you. I think some of the things that have got us through is as you guys have said, it's connecting with a bigger purpose, and is there something that's more important than your own experience of it that you're trying to build. And we've had a couple of elements of feedback where customers have said this has really helped me through lockdown, or this having this plant and a bit more greenery has really been really valuable. One of our food growing customers got in touch and said and explained some of the mental health issues that he'd been going through, and that the box had really helped him just slow down and calm down a little bit. And that it's only snippets of feedback like that, and when you build a community and you can have that two-way interaction with your customers, that the customers can actually carry you through the darker days, or the days where you feel a bit less sure of what you're doing. And so it's a really valuable relationship that goes both ways. You're not always just giving value. You can actually get quite a lot back. And once that starts, that sort of loop of motivation, it does snowball a little bit. But it can be a slow burner initially, but it gets going.
Yeah. Well, all three of you have got it going significantly, and I just build on what I've heard from the three of you tonight, which is. If we zoom out a little bit, this century is the biggest opportunity in like a long time human history to build new stuff that's going to be helpful and healthy, and to ourselves and future generations, and to nature and the planet, because we have to make this big transition, whether it's in energy or fashion or our relationship with nature in our homes, our food, etc. So it's all going to happen. We need it to happen fast, obviously. But it's all going to happen, and so the business opportunities that go with it are going to be huge. So it's so exciting to talk to the three of you this evening. Thanks for your time and energy and sharing your stories, Jill. I'm calling you Leo now because that's your brand. It's easy. And Rob, do connect with these founders, and more importantly, recommend and buy from them. But thank you so much for being with us this evening.